Welcome to the very first episode of the Luminara podcast. We are so excited to have you here. I'm Jacqueline, and I'm joined by my co-host, Liv.
Hi, everyone. Yes, this podcast has been a dream in the making for so long. We've been busy diving into research about all things energy healing and wellness, and we are so excited to finally share all of it with you.
Yeah, super true. So whether you're new to energy healing or you've been practicing it for years, you're going to hear some things in this podcast that might shock you, definitely inspire you, and make you probably want to cry as well. We're going to be having some real conversations with opinions that a lot of people might shy away from. So yeah, we'll be sharing our own stories, our still in progress healing journeys, have guests on the podcast to share their sometimes wild energy work stories. And of course, we'll be getting into the science as well and the mystery behind energy healing.
Yes, absolutely. And in the spirit of all of us getting to know each other, as in Jacqueline and I getting to know you guys, our audience, we wanted to kick off this episode by sharing Jacqueline and I's healing stories. So how we got into energy healing, why we stuck with it, and how we got here today on this podcast. So Jacqueline, I think you should start and take it away with what got you into energy healing.
Okay. Putting me on the spot a little. I guess I'll go there. And yeah, asking me to go deep right away. But I think that's the point of this pod. So
Let's just get it right.
Just dive right in. Yeah. Being vulnerable. That's the word of the year, right? So about 6 years ago, I lost my grandfather, and he was like a father to me. And so I don't know, like society just kind of tells you that you can only grieve for like a week or two after someone dies. You have the funeral, and then people kind of stop asking you like how you're doing. So I think basically I just internalized a lot of grief after he died, and really just wasn't letting any of it out. So I was seeing a therapist and doing some talk therapy, but what kind of got me was that I started having all these really physical symptoms of grief. So I was having like shoulder and back pain, like really achy neck, feeling really panicky for no reason, like just at work or at my house. And I was talking to my therapist, and she said, "Why don't you try seeing somebody who does energy work?" And I thought, okay, why not? I was living in San Francisco at the time, and so was kind of already immersed in this world of like alternative healing and energy work. So it wasn't that big of a jump for me to seek out someone that did Reiki. And there's a lot of people in San Francisco, so I certainly had a plethora to choose from. When I found the right person, within 20 minutes on the table, I felt like these waves of energy going through my body and like unlocking little pieces of me, like physically, where I felt like grief was stored. And it was just like this pressure release. And of course, I was crying and crying on the table. And so I don't know, better out than in,
Right.
with grief and crying. So that was my first experience. And then I did like 4 or 5 more sessions with that healer. And it really just helped me work through that grief and process it, which I wasn't doing up until that point, really. Yeah, so that's my story, starting with crying.
That's incredible. I think, first of all, it's really cool that you were going to a therapist, maybe like a more traditional sit on the couch and talk it out therapist. And they recommended that you try Reiki. I think that's incredible.
I was in San Francisco, and so my therapist was like kind of a witch anyways. Like she was more of like a spiritual guru than a therapist.
Right.
So in San Francisco, everybody kind of has, not everybody, but a more open vibe to these things. And so like I said, it wasn't a big jump to go from talk therapy to doing energy work.
Right. And you go into it and you think, oh, I'll just give it a try. Like, what harm can it do? And then it works. And
it actually works.
You feel it happening and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think you told me your story before, but I'd love to hear it again because I don't remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have always been a very spiritual person, even before I knew what being spiritual meant. Like as a kid, my parents always are telling me I would ask them the most deep questions all the time. Before I even knew about God or anything spiritual, I'd be asking like, why is the sky blue? And my parents would give me an answer and I'd be like, no, like that still doesn't make sense. Why is it blue though? Or, you know, who is God, or what's all this energy? I had all these questions and my parents would always say like, how does she even know how to ask these questions? So I think since I was little, I've always had this feeling that there's something bigger out there. There's some type of higher power that's interlinking all of us and everything that's going on in the world. I was always craving these answers. And then when I entered, well, so what I did was, it's interesting because I've always had this knowing, but I never had the inspiration to dive into it or necessarily do my own research. But how I came into it, I think, is how a lot of people will end up coming into energy healing. And it's when I got into my adult life, I started to realize like some maybe ways I was dealing with conflict or just some behaviors I was having, some insecurities that seemed to be coming up in my adult life were coming from my childhood. So I now know that that's my wounded inner child that needs healing and needs healing, which we all have. Even if you look back on your life and you think, oh, I had an amazing upbringing, you still could have those insecurities or that childhood trauma that's living inside of you from whatever the situation may be. So I also was going to therapy, but this was more of a traditional, just talking it out, sitting on the couch therapy. My therapist was not spiritual to my knowledge. I don't think she would necessarily recommend energy healing to me. But I was talking to her and I was just saying, just all these insecurities from my childhood and these fears from my childhood keep coming up. And I uncovered with her that they seem so deeply ingrained in my soul and in my body. And so I remember leaving that therapy session with her where we uncovered that this childhood trauma is so deeply ingrained in me. And I remember being so overwhelmed and I was crying and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so messed up. Like, how am I ever gonna fix this? How am I gonna heal this? Like, it's so deeply ingrained in me. And then I came across energy healing. And I believe my first energy healing session was with a shaman. It was a long time ago, and I knew nothing about it. I was totally new to it, so I didn't really know. But I believe it was with a shaman. And I was nervous, and I didn't tell her much, but I told her some surface level stuff. And then we did our healing session. First of all, the 45-minute session went by like 5 minutes. I was shocked.
Yeah, it's wild how time can just like stand still in these moments.
Seriously. It's so crazy. Like, if you really just sit there and let it happen, it's like you blink and it's over, when really it was an hour or however long. And so I remember when she finished, she was like, okay, you can open your eyes. And we start talking about it. And she starts telling me everything about what I've been struggling with from childhood until that current time. She knew everything. And I didn't tell her everything. I told her super surface level stuff because I was nervous. And she knew it all. And I just immediately started crying. And I just remember feeling like, she gets me. She gets it. She understands. I didn't even have to tell her, and she just gets it, because I think especially a lot of women my age and girls my age, you worry that people won't get it or they won't understand or they'll judge you for the things you're going through. So to have someone just immediately get me like that without me actually having to explain anything was just incredible.
Yeah, it's huge. What like an amazing feeling to be seen and to feel validated about your experience. Like, that's wild.
Yes, absolutely. And just because these healers just have so much knowledge and understanding, and when you're with an experienced healer, they've seen it all. Like, they're not going to judge you. They're just so validating and so open and loving. It's incredible experience. So of course I've been obsessed with
find that healer.
I found that healer actually through Luminara. That was my first healing session. That's how I got introduced to Luminara. Yeah, I've been obsessed ever since.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's wild that we both kind of got into energy healing in very different ways for different reasons at different times, but that we have these like super similar results where we felt like somebody really pinpointed something inside of us that needed to come out in some way, whether it's a story being told or whether it's an energetic release. And now we're both addicted to energy healing.
Yeah.
And learning about it.
It's so true. And I'm so glad I tried it, because you do hear around you and in society that, oh, it doesn't work, or, you know, it's witchcraft in a bad way or something. But I'm so glad I tried it, because if you feel called to try it, and if you listen to that, you soon realize why you felt called to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's like such a big point, is that you can't force somebody to be ready, but if you feel the call, it's a sign. If you
Yes.
feel interested, if you end up seeing a post on Instagram or somehow coming across this podcast, or, you know, I feel like it's the universe sending you little signs along the way that you need to listen to. And again, you can't force anybody to do something that's not in their timing, but I really think that these are all little signs that say, okay, now is your time.
Totally. And it's so important to listen to your intuition when that happens, because you do need to be open going into it. You have to be open to receiving the healing. Otherwise, you're going to block yourself from receiving this energy and this healing that's coming to you. So it definitely is important to come to it in your own time. And I think when you know that it's time to try.
I think also like a lot of people think that like you need to be broken in order to get healing. But
Right.
I think what I've learned through working with Luminara is this process is that healing isn't something that is fixing you. It is just augmenting like your own power to like create the homeostasis that your body and your mind and your soul want. It's not about, I mean, yes, oftentimes it can be energetically helping you heal aches and pains in your body or recovering from a surgery, but I think ultimately like it's really about reconnecting with yourself, tuning into like what your body needs, what your mind needs, and like you said earlier, like tapping into that universal source around us, that energy field that is just we're naturally living in anyways. It doesn't have to be about fixing yourself. No one's broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I also think is really cool that I learned from my first healing session was that any problem that you have, whether it's an emotional problem, a mental problem, or even a physical illness, energy healing can help with that. Because my perception I had of it before I knew anything was that, oh, it's a spiritual thing. It's spiritual healing.
Yeah.
But really, like, now we've heard stories of people who are physically healed from shingles or just some of the most random physical ailments you might hear about. Energy healing can help. And it's so comforting to me that there's something like that, that there's some way that you can tap into this universal love or light force and it can help you. Like, it's just so, I still have to wrap my head around it every day.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up like with basically like take ibuprofen or Advil if you have any ache, pain, headache,
Yeah.
cramps, take the medicine. And it's like, oh wait, there's another way. You don't have to do that. You don't have to like be taking pharmaceuticals every second. I mean, yes, they always have their place, right? Like,
Right.
but I mean, sometimes you can just focus on yourself and work on that energetic field around you to heal.
Yes. And if energy healing and natural cures could be used more in conjunction with the Western medical care system, I think that would work wonders for the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to learn like on this podcast, we're going to learn so much about other modalities in energy healing, like Reiki and sound, meditation, breath work. Like we're not just going to stick to one thing. We're going to learn all about it because it's all connected. And I'm super interested in learning more about sound healing myself. Like it's not something I know a lot about. But I'm excited to learn because like I get it intellectually. I've just never really experienced it. So I think we'll probably that should be an episode where we go and have a sound session somewhere and then talk about it.
I would love that. And I also am so excited for our upcoming episodes where we get to interview people about their healing stories, because our healing stories are very magical in their own way. And there's also some of the people we have coming on, I think their stories are just mind-blowing, like crazy.
Yeah.
So I just can't wait to dive into those and share them with the world.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, is so that we'll also talk to people who have had healing transformations, but we'll also talk to some of the skeptics along the way, people who are more on the science side of things, but they don't even realize half the time that they're proving that energy healing works when they talk about the science. And then we'll also have some of our healers on to get their opinions on all of this work that they're doing and share some of their stories, because I know some of our healers got into energy healing because they had profound experiences post-surgery or, and other things in their life. So we'll be sharing those stories too.
Absolutely. And we want this to be a conversation. This podcast is for our audience. Anybody who has questions about energy healing, any objections you may have, or anything you guys want to hear about, we would love to answer those questions. We are so lucky to have a network of incredible healers that we have access to. So we would love to be that middleman for you guys. If you have any questions, please comment. And we can ask our healers and actually get you answers, which is really what we want to do here.
Yeah, I mean, because we want answers. We all want answers ourselves. Yeah, we are seekers. So before we wrap up, I think one thing to leave you guys with to think about is, what does healing mean to you? And how do you know when you've reached a healed state? Maybe it's kind of a trick question, because let's see what you guys can think of. If you feel called, take a moment, journal about it, meditate a bit, and let us know. We're happy to share with you guys what healing means to us and kind of when we feel like we've reached some healing and what that looks like to us. But would love, for you guys all to take a minute and think about what that is for you, and how do you know when you've gotten there. Sometimes when you know the feeling that you want to feel, it's easier to back out of how to get there. So if you know you want to experience more joy, you want to experience more safety, once you identify that, you can then figure out the steps it'll take to get there.
And of course, we have to mention, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so that you can stay in tune with everything we have coming up. Of course, follow and leave a comment below if there's anything you're curious about, anything you'd like to say. We would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, totally. So thank you for being here with us, and we can't wait to get into this journey with you, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Yay!